In the vast and desolate landscape of the West Mesa in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a sinister secret lay buried beneath the arid soil. The discovery of a mass grave in 2009 would unravel a chilling tale of disappearances, vulnerabilities, and the elusive figure known as the West Mesa Bone Collector. The victims. The story begins with a series of disappearances that occurred between 2003 and 2005. 11 women vanished from the Albuquerque area, leaving their families in a perpetual state of anguish and uncertainty. Their names were Jamie Barella, Monica Candelaria, Victoria Chavez, Doreen Marquez, Virginia Cloven, Selania Edwards, Cinnamon Elks, Julie Nieto, Veronica Romero, Evelyn Salazar, and Michelle Valdez. These women, ranging in age from 15 to 32, shared common threads in their lives. Many were involved in sex work and had transient lifestyles, factors that made them vulnerable to exploitation and violence. The transient nature of their lives also contributed to delays in reporting their disappearances, leaving law enforcement with challenging cases that lacked timely information. The discovery. In 2009, construction workers on the West Mesa stumbled upon a gruesome scene that would shake the foundations of the community. While digging for a housing development, they uncovered human remains buried in shallow graves. The police were immediately called to the scene, and what they found was a haunting tableau of tragedy. The mass grave contained the skeletal remains of the missing women. The macabre discovery sent shockwaves through Albuquerque, prompting law enforcement agencies to mobilize in an effort to solve the mystery of the West Mesa Bone Collector. The crime scene, eerily located in an area that had once been a makeshift dump, added an unsettling layer to an already disturbing case. The investigation. As authorities began the painstaking task of identifying the remains and piecing together the timeline of events, patterns started to emerge. The victims were linked not only by their disappearances, but also by their connections to the sex trade and drug use. These commonalities painted a portrait of a vulnerable demographic, a group of women who faced increased risks due to the transient and high-risk nature of their lives. The remote location of the crime scene posed challenges for investigators. Years had passed since the women's disappearances, eroding potential evidence. The transient lifestyle of the victims also complicated efforts to create a comprehensive timeline of their movements and interactions. Patterns and challenges. The West Mesa Bone Collector case was marked by several distinct patterns and challenges. The victims, primarily involved in sex work, had overlapping circles of associates within their communities. This web of connections became a focal point for investigators seeking to understand the circumstances surrounding their disappearances. The killer, or killers, appeared to have chosen the West Mesa as a dumping ground for their victims, perhaps counting on the desolation of the area to avoid detection. The graves, shallow and hastily dug, hinted at a perpetrator determined to hide their heinous acts. One of the significant challenges faced by law enforcement was the lack of leads. The transient lifestyle of the victims meant that they often went unreported when they first disappeared. This delayed reporting hindered the investigation, making it difficult to establish clear timelines and potential leads in the early stages of the case. The community's response. The discovery of the mass grave sent shockwaves through the Albuquerque community. Candlelight vigils, memorials, and community events were organized to honor the memory of the victims. Families who had endured years of uncertainty found a grim sense of closure but remained haunted by the unanswered question of who was responsible for the deaths of their loved ones. The community, now aware of the grim reality that a serial killer had been targeting vulnerable women, rallied for justice. Calls for renewed efforts in the investigation grew louder as the families sought closure and accountability. The West Mesa Bone Collector had left a scar on the collective psyche of Albuquerque, a city grappling with the realization that a predator had operated in its midst. The composite sketch. In an attempt to generate leads, law enforcement released a composite sketch of a person of interest. This sketch was based on accounts from witnesses who had seen a man with some of the victims before their disappearances. The hope was that the image might trigger memories or prompt individuals with information to come forward. However, despite these efforts, the identity of the West Mesa Bone Collector remained elusive. The composite sketch, while a valuable tool, did not yield the breakthrough investigators had hoped for. The killer continued to evade justice, leaving a community and law enforcement agencies frustrated and haunted by the unsolved mystery. The theories. In the absence of a named suspect, theories and speculation flourished. Some suggested the possibility of multiple perpetrators, while others pondered the idea of a truck driver or transient killer preying on vulnerable women. The lack of concrete leads added to the mystery surrounding the West Mesa bone collector. The transient lifestyle of the victims and the remote location of the crime scene fueled various theories about the killer's identity and motives. Some wondered if the West Mesa bone collector was a local resident familiar with the area, while others entertained the possibility of a more organized operation preying on vulnerable women. The family's plight. The families of the victims faced the unimaginable challenge of not only losing their loved ones, but also navigating the complexities of the criminal justice system. The years-long ordeal had taken a toll on their emotional well-being, and the discovery of the mass grave brought a mixture of relief and grief. Despite the closure that came with the recovery of their loved ones' remains, the families remained steadfast in their quest for justice. Candlelight vigils and public memorials served as both a tribute to the victims and a call for renewed efforts to solve the case. The families sought solace in the collective support of the community, who shared in their grief and determination to find answers. The legacy. Years after the initial discovery, the West Mesa bone collector case remained unsolved. Theories and suspicions circulated, but no arrests were made, and the true identity of the killer or killers remained hidden. The haunting question of who was responsible for the deaths of these 11 women lingered, casting a shadow over the West Mesa and the city of Albuquerque. The case left a lasting legacy, sparking conversations about the vulnerabilities faced by marginalized and high-risk populations, as well as the challenges in solving crimes that involve transient lifestyles. The quest for justice continued, driven by the enduring hope that answers would one day be found, and that the victims of this heinous crime would be granted the justice they deserved. Conclusion. The West Mesa bone collector case stands as a stark reminder of the challenges in solving crimes against vulnerable populations. The transient lifestyles of the victims, combined with the complexities of the sex trade and drug use, created a challenging investigative landscape. The quest for justice continues, driven by the enduring hope that answers will one day be found, and that the victims of this heinous crime will be granted the justice they deserve. The West Mesa bone collector, whoever they may be, remains a dark and elusive figure in the annals of unsolved mysteries, leaving a community haunted by the unresolved fate of those whose lives were tragically cut short on the desolate expanse of the West Mesa.